Here's to the bold. The Professional Women's Hockey League is back. Lace up, strap in, and tune in to Hockey Saturdays on CBC, where you can catch the best women's hockey players competing head-to-head with everything they've got. The puck drops Saturdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on CBC, CBC Gem, and cbcsports.ca.
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at minus 21 with an extreme cold warning in downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada has to remain calm and strong in the face of tariff threats from the new U.S. administration. President Donald Trump made no mention of imposing tariffs on Canada during his inauguration yesterday, but he floated the idea once again last night while signing executive orders in the Oval Office. Tom Perry has the latest.
We know that there is always going to be a certain amount of unpredictability and rhetoric coming out from this administration.
As the Prime Minister sits down with his ministers on the final day of their cabinet retreat, Trudeau is urging Canadians and Canadian politicians to keep calm when it comes to Trump and his persistent threat of tariffs.
Donald Trump is, as always, a skilled negotiator and will do what he can to keep his negotiating partners a little bit off balance.
Trump threw Canada and Mexico off balance last night when he mused to reporters in the Oval Office he could impose a 25% tariff on both countries by February 1st. Trudeau says his government will keep working to avoid that. But if the U.S. goes ahead, he says Canada will retaliate, with Trudeau saying he would be prepared to go as far as levying tariffs that match the U.S. dollar for dollar. Tom Perry, CBC News, Montebello, Quebec.
Meanwhile, an executive order coming from Trump to only recognize two genders is dehumanizing. That from Charlie O, Executive Director of Trans Manitoba, Inc. They say such a move will make it dangerous for non-binary and trans people not only to live in the United States, but to cross the border as well. O worries the rhetoric in the U.S. is spreading.
Increasingly in Canada, it's heartbreaking and terrifying to think that if they want to know the current state of politics, that I have to tell them that the United States is trying to legislate them out of existence.
Canadian citizens can choose to have an X on their passport under gender. O says despite having family in the United States, they will not cross the border now out of fear of being harassed or abused because of their gender status. The city of Winnipeg has significantly reduced wait times for people who phone 311 for services. 3 years ago, the wait was more than 11 minutes. Last year, it was less than 2 minutes. Felicia Wiltshire is Director of Customer Service and Communications. She says 311 now has 98 full-time positions.
We've invested a lot in the frontline staffing who are answering our phones, and in addition to that, we increased our funding for overtime. So when we experience significant events like an unexpected snowfall or things like that, we now have a better ability to call additional staff in on overtime.
Wiltshire says more Winnipeggers are also making online requests for service. This spring, the city will test a chatbot through artificial intelligence. And a plan to lease a new police helicopter in Winnipeg is moving ahead at City Council. Minutes ago, Council's Executive Policy Committee unanimously approved a $13.5 million lease for the chopper. The lease still faces Council approval on January 30th. And Canada's inflation rate continues to fall. It dipped down to 1.8% last month from 1.9% in November. Statistics Canada says the biggest factor in the decline was the federal government's temporary GST break. Without it, Stats Can says the inflation rate would have increased by close to half a percentage point. In Manitoba, inflation edged higher last month from 0.9% in November to 1.1% in December. The National Institute on Aging is calling on all levels of Canadian government to adopt a long-term care model it's calling small care homes. These are households of no more than 10 to 12 residents, with each facility staffed by a small team of frontline health workers. In a report released this week, the Institute says the small care homes would provide better care, better control, and better quality of life than traditional facilities, which, on average, house dozens of residents. Much of Halifax right now is under a boil water advisory. Halifax Water says there had been a short planned power outage at a treatment facility, but that's when unchlorinated water entered the drinking supply. The boil water advisory could be in place for up to 2 days before it's lifted. Water fountains in affected schools are taped off, and bottled water is being provided. The last surviving member of the band has died. 1968, that's Garth Hudson playing the organ on the band classic Chest Fever. Hudson grew up in London, Ontario, and was the group's keyboard player, but also played the accordion and the saxophone. He was one of 4 Canadians who made up the band, which is considered one of the most influential acts in rock music. The group was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1994. Garth Hudson died yesterday in a nursing home in Woodstock, New York. He was 87 years old. And finally, we have a blowing snow advisory for parts of the Red River Valley right now. Strong wind from the south and falling snow could mean poor visibility at times. Roadways running west to east will be particularly vulnerable. Conditions are expected to improve early this evening. And again, in Winnipeg, blowing snow. Wind from the south, a high of minus 18 this afternoon. Brandon, windy and snowy, a high of minus 16. Dauphin, periods of wind and snow, a high of minus 10. Flin Flon, a high of minus 15 with snow. Tamsin and Thompson, a chance of light snow, a high of minus 20. And on the bay in Churchill, a high of minus 32 with sunny skies.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk. Good to be with you. Coming up this hour on the show, fond memories are pouring in for a retired Brandon teacher who died at the age of 112. She was the oldest living Canadian before she died. Coming up in our call-in conversation, tell us about a teacher that had a big impact on your life. We're opening up the phone lines after 12:30 with Superintendent Matt Henderson of the Winnipeg School Division. Also coming up on the show, we're going to check in with Canada's largest indoor farm show. Egg Days starts today. We're going to chat with its general manager. That and much, much more coming up right here on Radio Noon. Stay tuned. But up first here on the show, we often hear that men find it hard to talk about their own mental health. That's what St. Anne resident Jeremy Weens found when he was struggling. But he didn't stay silent. Instead, he spoke about the need for men's mental health supports at the Manitoba legislature. Here's some of what he had to say.
Back in 2015, 2016, I went through separation and divorce. And I was left alone with 3 kids that I had to figure out how to raise. I had to figure out what I was going to do with them and how to do this. But before I could even figure that out, I was absolutely devastated by my divorce at the time, and I didn't know how I was going to get through that. I spent a lot of time alone. Kind of the kids would be going to bed, and I would just be in my room. I didn't see people. I was very secluded. I felt isolated in that. It was a very dark period in my life.
That's Jeremy Weens advocating for Bill 217, and that established a Men's Mental Health Awareness Week in Manitoba. It's now law, and it's actually the first of its kind in Canada. And he also decided now to go one step further. He's just started a men's mental health support group in St. Anne, and he joins me now. Hello there, Jeremy.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, good. Listening to you speaking at the legislature, sharing your story, I can't imagine that was something that's easy to do. It's so personal. What prompted you to share your story back in October?
Well, it's one of those things where I've come through a lot, and I'm kind of on the other side of a lot of those struggles, a lot of those hardships, right? And I know that there's a lot of guys that are not, and sometimes it's isolating. You feel like you're alone. And one of the things I kind of got to know is that other men that they're not alone, that there are other people that are going through a lot of the same stuff, but nobody wants to talk about it, and they just want to kind of suffer in silence. So not that they want to, but they just don't feel safe that they're able to, because they have the stigma that they have to deal with it, man up and whatnot. And although there's a time and place for that, but there's also a time and place where we need one another. We need to know that we're not alone. And if I can help somebody, and you know what, like with the men's suicide rates and just being so high, and just the struggle that I know so many go through, if I can help a couple men or one man or somebody, right, then it's worth it.
How hard was it for you to work up the courage to share your story, or was it something that was easy for you?
Well, it wasn't easy. It was definitely a struggle to get to the point where I was able to, like, I committed to doing it, and that was all well and good. But when the time came, it got a little bit nerve-wracking. But nonetheless, I felt like this is something that needs to be spoken about, and needs to be talked about, and it was an opportunity. I felt too strongly about it to not say anything.
And what was it like when you finally did share it? Was there a sense of relief there?
You would think so. But actually, it became harder in a sense where it's like, now what are people going to think of me afterwards, right? And so it was, on one hand, I was relieved that part was done, but the other hand, sharing that story, then also like realizing, well, what are people going to think now that they see this? Are they going to think less of me because I'm talking like this? Are they going to think this or that, right? And you kind of get in your own head, and it can go really down. But through it all, I've had immense amount of encouragement, immense amount of people supporting and excited for what's happening.
I'm so glad to hear that. And looking back to your story, you shared it. You're in a tough place. I'm glad to hear that you said you're someone on the other side of it now. But at the time, how hard was it for you to seek out and find help and support to help you through it?
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I'm speaking up now is there was absolutely nothing for men at that time, and there still isn't. It just doesn't seem to be anything available. Like I ended up having to spend, I think it was $220-250 an hour to go see a psychologist to kind of help me work through that. Well, that's not ready. Not a lot of people could afford such, right? It's just not. It's not feasible at all. I look for a lot of helps, a lot of things that I searched and searched and searched. And if I needed AA, that was there. If I needed anger management, that was there. If I needed like something else, that was all there. But for mental health, there's absolutely nothing then. And even now, like the guy who actually approached me to start the men's group, he's just talked to him this morning. He's like, he keeps scouring. There's just nothing there that's feasible for men.
So you had someone approach you about starting this men's group. So and now you've gone out and tried to get people to come by. How did that go? And how does the recruiting work, especially for something that's maybe not recruiting, or how does it go? How did it go trying to find people to take part? Because I imagine if it's so hard for men to step up and say like, "Hey, I need help," what was that kind of process like of finding folks to take part in your group?
So Ryan approached me to ask if I would be interested in joining him with this, because he saw my speech there, and I was like, absolutely, right? And so we did just a short 4 or 5 minute video of just saying like, look, this is what we want to start, a men's mental health group here in St. Anne. We want to get the word out and whatnot. And that video had over 10,000 views just on Facebook alone. I think we were at 12,000 or something like that, but like a lot of views for our small town and whatnot, right? And the comments, everybody was just so supportive of it. They're over the moon, and we had people reaching out. I had people reach out from Cornwall, Ontario. I had people reach out from all over, just in support of this, right? And I still have people talking to me. Is like, how did you get this started? And so that's. I think as soon as you put it out there, it was very quick to come. I think people just need to take that step and actually take the action to do it.
And I actually understand you held your first meeting on January 14th. How'd it go?
It went phenomenal. Like, we had 20 men show up, and we didn't know what to expect with this, right? Because this is first meeting and weren't sure. And the impressive thing was we just started. Ryan shared his story, and he has a unique story. Then I shared mine, and we went around the room, and every single one of these men started talking and just sharing some of the struggles or some of the pain that they went through, that they're currently going through, and others shared, like, they went through stuff, but they're here for support. It was just all in all, just a really phenomenal experience to be part of.
How many men there was it their first time actually, sharing it in a group setting, maybe outside of, maybe family or anyone even?
Well, some of it was, this is their first time talking to anybody about this, which was really amazing, because to feel, and they said that this is, like, I've never shared this with anybody before, but this is my struggle. And there's others who, like, I've been in counseling for this and doing this, and they're in progress, like, of getting through stuff, but some, they just, like, I've never felt like I could share this before. And so just to be there, to have that place where they could open up and share, was phenomenal.
What does that tell you about the demand for these kind of groups?
You know what? I think it's something that's needed. It's something that's desired. And, like, if I can help in any way, if somebody's thinking of where do I start, like, I'd love to help them out just to get the ball rolling. I think the different communities, you're going to open up. It's a risk to open up because you make yourself a little more vulnerable. But the reward is, maybe you're going to help somebody. Maybe you're going to save a life. Maybe you're going to do who knows what and make an impact on another man's life. Like, and then that's going to impact their family. That's going to impact so much more than just that one individual, right? So there's such a need for it.
If there's one thing I learned kind of throughout life, mental health is something that you never completely, maybe necessarily totally cure, and hopefully maybe you do, but a lot of people, it's learning to manage it and live with it and control it. For you, how does this work help you kind of, work towards living a more mentally healthy life?
Yeah. So, like, even for myself, I still see a counselor about once a month, kind of thing, and just to kind of work through life issues, life stuff. Like, I think that's important to be able to have an outlet where you could do that, right? And so to open up a group like this, you see the need, you see the desire for people, and just knowing that you can actually make a difference in somebody's life is, like, that motivates me, that drives me, and just to see how you can actually impact those lives. It's and just the amount of those guys that said that they were so excited about this, it just blew me away.
And the group yourself, your men's mental health group, if there is someone in the St. Anne area who's looking for help, how can they take part?
Yeah, so we are meeting again on February 13th at AJ Fiola Insurance Boardroom, and that's in St. Anne at 7:00. If the show up there's no sign up. You just show up and you're welcome, right?
Jeremy, thanks so much for your time this afternoon, and all the best.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you for sharing the story.
Jeremy Weens lives in St. Anne and now runs a men's mental health support group. Men interested in attending can drop by, and I'll say this again, the AG Fiola Boardroom in St. Anne. And the next meeting is February 13th at 7 p.m.
Canada, you have questions.
I intend to resign as Prime Minister.
Let's talk about them.
There are real consequences.
I do think it would help to have a little bit more money.
They should be a state.
Canada Tonight. Watch on CBC News Network and CBC Gem.
12:18 right now on Radio Noon. I'm Corey Funk. Good to be with you. Still to come here on the show. We're opening up our phone lines after 12:30 to ask you stories about a teacher that had a big impact on your life. And the reason we're doing it is because there is a woman who just died recently in Brandon. She was 112 years old, and she was a teacher, and people are remembering her very, very fondly. And as you can imagine, she had lots of students that had a big impact on many kids' lives. So we want to hear from you. Call our our listener line or call our studio line after 12:30. Tell us about a teacher that had a big impact on your life. Also, just ahead, we're going to bring you to Brandon to talk about Egg Days. It's the first day of Canada's largest indoor farm show. We're going to hear about what you can expect there. But first, let's take a quick look at your current conditions across the province. We do have a blowing snow advisory for parts of the Red River Valley. That means strong wind from the south, and some falling snow could mean some poor visibilities. That also means roadways running west-east will be particularly vulnerable, so conditions are expected, though, to improve by the evening. Right now in Brandon, you are sitting at minus 16 with some light and drifting snow. Churchill at the airport, you are minus 33 right now, and you're the cold spot in Manitoba, but also the cold spot in Canada right now. Flin Flon at the airport, some light snow, minus 18. Sprague, you're at minus 20. Swan River, you're a hot spot in Manitoba at minus 12. Thompson, you are minus 22 right now. And Winnipeg at the Forks, minus 21. Well, the halls of Brandon's Keystone Center are packed with farm equipment and technology for the 48th annual Manitoba Egg Days. It's the country's largest indoor farm show and gives producers a chance to learn about the latest farming innovations and students a chance to see if agriculture is a possible career track. Kristen Phillips is the general manager of Egg Days. Hello.
Hello.
So today is day one of Egg Days. One of the big attractions is the technology and the innovation that people bring each year. So what can you tell us about what people will see this year?
Yeah, so in our show, we have over 550 exhibitors, and we have 34 new innovations this year. So we run an innovation showcase where we focus on egg tech, egg machinery, farm-built solutions, farm safety, animal and livestock, and egg technology. And so in those 7 different categories, people can enter, and the judges are judging today, and the winners will be announced tomorrow.
Obviously, I'm not going to ask you to choose favorites, but are there just any interesting kind of innovations kind of worth mentioning?
The largest combine is here. We have a robotic weeding and seeding robot that is very, very interesting. We have a couple of new drones that are coming out. There's 3 apps that are featured. There's a skid steer edition, so a self-controlled, remote-controlled robot skid steer. It's very, very exciting.
Oh, cool. So Manitoba's agribusiness sector, it helps contribute over $4 billion to the province's economy. Yet there's the looming tariff threat from President Trump. How are farmers and farm equipment vendors kind of feeling about that? What are you kind of hearing on the floor?
Yeah, I think that there is uncertainty in what the future holds. I think everyone is hopeful that tariffs won't come into place, but it will be a wait-and-see game for us.
Right. And we know that the industry is struggling to also attract more workers. So what are you hearing from vendors about what they're doing to attract more workers to their businesses?
In Manitoba, 1 in 4 jobs is actually related or connected to the egg industry. In Canada, 1 in 7 or 8 jobs is connected to agriculture. So the egg industry is actually thriving in a place that people should look. We actually have Agriculture in the Classroom Manitoba here at our show, and their whole focus is an egg venture. So they're encouraging students between the ages of grade 7 and grade 12, to come and take in the show and meet with future prospects and really explore the different opportunities that there are in the egg industry.
How many students are you expecting to come through?
There will be 1,200.
Wow. Okay. That must be fun. So this is a big event in the agriculture industry. What do you hear from people who attend from outside Brandon?
Oh, so yeah, we are Canada's largest indoor farm show. We have exhibitors all across Canada. So BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, Prince Edward Island. We also have exhibitors from the United States, France, Australia, Germany. So our show is a very large show. Attendees come from as far as Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and then North Dakota, South Dakota. So we have a very large draw for our show.
And what do you hope people take away from Egg Days this year in particular?
I think that Egg Days is where the egg year begins. It's an opportunity to start a new fresh start and think about the cropping season. And so coming off of the 2024 season, Egg Days gives you that chance to look fresh to 2025. And I hope that we find optimism as we go into this seeding season.
Kristen, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Kristen Phillips is the general manager of Manitoba Egg Days 2025. Manitoba Egg Days runs from today through Thursday at the Keystone Center in Brandon. 12:24 right now here on Radio Noon. And next on the show, Julian Taylor is an award-winning musician of Mohawk and Caribbean descent. He says growing up surrounded by a mosaic of culture played a significant role in who he is today. And his new album, Pathways, is rooted in how that mosaic shaped him. Taylor tells Unreserved host Rosanna Deerchild how he channels his ancestry while making music.
Yeah, there was sort of an ancestral sort of thing tapping into it. My grandfather, my cousins, my uncles, everybody sort of had a deep appreciation for music, and some of them even played a lot of music, and sort of it rubbed off on me. So always trying to tap into those ancestral voices, always trying to tap into something that's a little deeper and try to reach from the other side and bring whatever I can here. When I was, younger, I was pretty proud of my ancestry. Proud to be Mohawk, which my grandfather was. Proud to be Black, which my dad's family and certainly part of my mom's family is too. And just really proud of the mosaic that was around me at the time. When I was younger and my grandfather and I spent a lot of time together, it was him that instilled a lot of the values that I still uphold today when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to nature. It was a juxtaposition in my life because, one grandfather believed very much in that, and then my other grandfather on my dad's side was a pastor, a very spiritual and soulful man in his own right. But definitely the two families, my mom and my dad's families, I remember a bit of friction between her and my grandmother, my dad's mother, but all love at the same time. Speaking to my mom and having sort of the feelings of being a cultural mosaic personally in who I am, it was kind of tricky growing up. And it's still tricky because my mom used to always say, you'd have to work extra hard. You'd have to work 150% more than anybody else in your situation who may be of Caucasian descent or whatnot. And never Black enough to be Black, never red enough to be red, sort of stuck in the middle was a feeling and continues to be one. But at the very same time, extremely proud of being more than one thing.
This week, Unreserved talked to Julian Taylor and his bandmates and close friend Jeremy Elliott about the ups and downs of making music together. You can catch the show today at 1 p.m. here on CBC Radio 1 or listen anytime on the CBC Listen app. From Julian Taylor's latest release, here's the title track. This is Pathways here on CBC Radio 1.
On this path, as we get closer, I'll be there as we grow older. From beginning to end, we make and lose friends. There's so many pearls to gather. From the first thing we see to the last thing we need, it's the life in between that matters. All the warmth that you bring, darling, these things are the wings that we all chase after. And on this pathway, as we get closer, I'll be there as we grow older. When you need me, here's my shoulder. Be gentle, be kind, be grateful, take time. Remember, we're in this together. Let's just be who we are. Follow our hearts and dream that love is forever. On this pathway, as we get closer, closer.
That's Julian Taylor with Pathways. Well, still to come here on Radio Noon, fond memories are pouring in for a retired Brandon teacher who died at the age of 112. Is there a teacher that set you on a pathway? Tell us your stories about a teacher that had an impact on your life. We're opening up the phone lines right now, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. We'll let Julian Taylor take us to your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at minus 21 with cloudy skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. President Donald Trump's decision for the U.S. government to only recognize two genders, male and female, is causing concern for the executive director of Trans Manitoba, Inc. Charlie O says they were frightened and heartbroken to hear the U.S. federal government will no longer recognize non-binary or trans people. Here in Canada, citizens can put an X for gender on their passports. And O worries that will mean trouble if they go to the United States.
I won't be crossing the border anytime soon. I don't think that my gender presentation or my identity documents will provide me any sort of safety in crossing the border. It's heartbreaking. I don't know if or when I'll see my brother and his kids or my dad again.
And O worries similar attitudes toward gender non-conforming people are working their way into Canadian politics. Meanwhile, today is Trump's first full day of his second term. He's already signed close to 200 executive orders, but so far he's yet to sign off on any tariff action against Canada. But he did say it could come as soon as February 1st. Janice McGregor explains.
It's not clear this February 1st date is serious. It wasn't part of any prepared speech or formal announcement yesterday. It's not referenced in the 8-page America First trade policy that the administration released last night. It's possible that Donald Trump only said it because a reporter asked about it as the cameras rolled during his photo op. This restated threat is inconsistent with this published trade policy. That document mentions investigating the feasibility of a global supplemental tariff to offset trade imbalances. It also mentions assessing appropriate trade and national security measures to address unlawful migration and fentanyl flows. But the April deadline for that work, Trump's suggestion of tariffs slapping on February 1st would be an action taken before his administration even finishes these investigations. Janice McGregor, CBC News, Ottawa.
And finally, Winnipeggers are now waiting on average less than 2 minutes when they call 311. That is a sharp drop from more than 11 minutes 3 years ago. Felicia Wiltshire is Director of Customer Service and Communications. She says 311 now has 98 full-time positions, and more Winnipeggers are using the service.
Our number of interactions overall with 311 have increased again this year. So we did take a bit of a drop for a couple of years, and they're heading back up, and they're increasing across all the channels is what we're finding. So we're getting more increases through the phone. We're also getting more increases on online services.
Wiltshire says this spring, the city will test a chatbot through artificial intelligence. And that's your CBC News from Winnipeg.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Back soon.
That is Matt Henderson at our CBC News desk.
Henderson.
Matt, you know what's so funny? We have Matt Henderson standing by. Matt Humphrey, sorry.
A rose by any other name.
That was me billing ahead and also I was trying to do two things at once, I guess. So that is Matt Humphrey at our CBC News desk. How'd I do? Oh, he's gone.
No, it's good. That was great.
Good.
You nailed it.
Sorry, Matt. I'll get it right next time. That leads me to let folks know that we have Matt Henderson, Superintendent of the Winnipeg School Division, joining us just ahead here shortly because we are opening up the phone lines. We want to hear from you about the most about your stories about a teacher that had an impact on your life. That number to call if you want to tell us a story, you want to give a shout out to a teacher that's made a big impact on your life, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. But before we get to that, we do have Riley Lachuk, who I know that for sure is his last name, in with us to tell us a little bit about
you'd be surprised at some of the variations I've gotten over the years.
That's fair. What's the weather looking like?
Almost 10 degrees warmer in Winnipeg right now than it was at this time yesterday.
Oh, hey, that's still feels cold.
An improvement.
Yeah,
minus 21. You know what? I will say, my walk into work this morning, it felt balmy out there. Compared to yesterday.
It is that thing where it's like, oh, it's only minus.
It's only minus 21 right now.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, starting to see some warmth back to the west as well. So Brandon, for example, minus 16 at the moment, minus 14 in Dauphin, but Saskatoon, Regina, minus 2 and minus 3 right now. So some improvement coming as we get through the next couple of days here. We do have some snow that's been pushing through, though. That improvement coming along with some instability. So we've had this area of low pressure, a pretty weak clipper system, making its way southeast across the province, seeing some snow moving through the Brandon region earlier, a few flurries in Dauphin, starting to see a little bit of that falling in the Winnipeg area right now. That's prompted a blowing snow advisory actually for the south central part of the province and the Red River Valley, down Highway 75 and up 59 into Grand Beach, Victoria Beach. Looking at some gusty winds this afternoon, even outside the city up to 60 kilometers an hour. So even a couple centimeters of fresh snow, we're going to see that blowing around, creating some visibility problems. Extreme cold morning still into northwestern Ontario. That's now been dropped for Manitoba. So I expect that we'll see a little bit of improvement in temperatures as we get through the afternoon hours. But just to give you a sense at how far south this cold air really digs, parts of the greater Toronto area under extreme cold mornings, really all of southern Ontario, into the U.S. Midwest, parts of the eastern seaboard, and along the Gulf Coast, Houston, right through Louisiana, into Alabama, the panhandle of Florida, right up into the Carolinas under winter storm warnings. Not typically a place you think of when you think of accumulating snow, but we're looking at some cold conditions, relatively speaking, on or just below the freezing mark for that section. And in fact, parts of southern Louisiana around New Orleans right now under a blizzard warning. So we're looking at some very, very drastically different conditions than we're used to for parts of the southern states. We do look at a few flurries through the afternoon today, some light snow in Winnipeg to the tune of maybe a couple of centimeters. We start to clear into Wednesday, back into some sunshine by the afternoon. And again, back into the cold temperatures for the next couple of days before we start to see a little bit of improvement. Out of the snow that's falling, 2 centimeters, maybe you pick up 4 centimeters in your backyard, but generally speaking, a couple of centimeters not out of the question, but we start to see temperatures moderating a bit. So minus 14 in Winnipeg by later in the day today, looking at an afternoon temperature, say around minus 17, minus 18 in Winnipeg, minus 6 in Brandon, Verdon, minus 4 this afternoon, so some warmth to the west, minus 19s for Wednesday and Thursday for Winnipeg, minus 6 for Friday, and minus 10 for Saturday.
Thank you very much, Riley.
You're welcome.
That is Riley Lachuk, our CBC weather specialist. Well, it is time now for our call-in conversation, and it's spurred on by the country's oldest Canadian, who was a Brandonite. Hazel Skews was her name, and she lived to be 112 years, 331 days old, and died on January 3rd. And since the super centenarian was a long-time teacher in Brandon, former students fondly remembered her decades after she retired. And that got us thinking how much teachers can often have a profound and powerful impact on our lives. And today on our call-in conversation, we want to hear if you had a great teacher like Hazel Skews. So who was your favorite teacher and why? How did they inspire you? What's something they taught you that still sticks with you today? You can call us with your thoughts and your stories, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. You can also text us, 204-588-7355. That's 204-588-7355. And joining us now is Matt Henderson. He is superintendent of the Winnipeg School Division. Hello there, Matt.
Hello.
Hey. So first thing I got to ask you, do you have a teacher that stands out to you as someone having a particular impact on your life?
Yeah, I was thinking about that to the lead up to this, and I probably have three, one in the early years, middle years, and then senior years. But I just remember from my time at River Heights, and sometimes it's the small things that Mr. Pugh, who was my homeroom teacher, but also taught me French, really taught me two things. One was how to conjugate verbs, which has stayed with me for forever in French, but also introduced me to Jacques Brel. And as a tiny kid being introduced to Jacques Brel, and now I have a real deep appreciation for that music. And then in high school, I had a transformative teacher, George Akins at Kelvin, who in grade 12, where I was sort of checked out of school, treated me as an adult, introduced me to why Shakespeare was important, and challenged all of us and taught us how to read and write and think. And he did that with love. And those are the people that you never forget.
We've actually already got a few calls here, so I want to say hello to Richard. Hi there, Richard.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Tell us a little bit about a teacher that had impact on your life.
My grade 6 teacher was a man named Dave Wilding in Newfoundland, and I had done a math test, standardized provincial math test, and I had gotten a series of questions wrong on it. And he had gone back through and seen that I had changed my answers from the correct answers. And he really instilled in me the notion that my first instinct is almost always right. And the number of times in my mid-40s that I will say to myself, first instinct is right, referring specifically to that moment. To say that he has molded pieces of my life going forward would be a dramatic understatement.
Huh.
And then, of course, in high school, I had another one of those formative teachers who instilled in me a love for paleontology, of all things. And I went to the Drumheller Museum a little while ago and bought him a tie filled with fossils that I sent to him with a note that said, I know that the majority of your career must feel like you're just throwing mud against the wall, hoping that some of it sticks. But I went to this museum and I love this topic because of you. And for the last 5 years of his career, he used that as his parent-teacher interview tie. So those are the two for me.
Oh, I love that. I mean, it's amazing. It really is those little things, isn't it? Thank you so much, Richard, for your call. I really appreciate that.
Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you too. Be like Richard, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. Matt, what stuck out to you about Richard's story there? Like, for you, is that what you hear often? Is it's those little things like what he went through?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think sometimes it's a little thing where as teachers, we always have to be on guard about how we connect with kids and some of the things we say, and it might be a quick piece of feedback that a teacher gives us that really shifts our direction. But from other folks, it's just about just a general sense of warmth and care with high expectations. That's one thing that I hear about often is when people think about a teacher that's had an impact on them, they always talk about that, that teacher was hard on me and had high expectations. And when I came into the class, they loved me up, but they also said I needed to do my part. And I think there's some lessons that all teachers can take from that.
We've got Vivian on the line. Hi, Vivian.
Hi, how are you doing? It's cold out here.
What's your story?
Okay. I also had a fantastic grade six teacher at Grosvenor School here in Winnipeg. His name was Mr. Laycock. And listening to that other gentleman talk about Newfoundland and going with your gut when you're doing multiple choice questions, he told me the same thing, or told us the same thing. He didn't treat us like little kids. He treated us like sensible, mature, young adults at grade 6. And it really made us want to work harder because we now had this, expectation, like the gentleman said. It's an expectation. But we put it on ourselves, not him. It was the way he approached us that made us want to do better. And so he just taught me how to be, I'm a teacher myself, and it's his fault that I'm a teacher. And then in grade 7 at Balmoral Hall, I had an English teacher, Miss Oswald, who taught me a greater love of reading and English and words. And I now have a master's in ESL, and that's what I teach. I taught abroad for 12 years, and that's her fault that I got so excited about words and language. And so those are the two people that have affected my entire life and career.
It really sounds like you can attribute a lot of who you are to your teachers. Wow.
Yes, oh, definitely. And I hope someday some of my students will at least consider me being in that same group.
Have you heard from any students yourself who have said, hey Vivian, like you're that teacher for me?
No, because having been abroad, you kind of lose touch with people. Yeah, so no, I haven't
I'm
had
sure
that
it's
opportunity.
only a matter of time, for sure.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much, Vivian. Really appreciate
Thanks
your
a
call.
lot.
Keep those calls coming. They're lighting up right now, and I want to go right to someone soon. But if you want to call us, 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. So many lovely stories and many more lovely stories to come, with Brian. Hi there, Brian.
Oh, good afternoon. How are you?
Good. What's your story?
Oh, I left school in 1985. My family life was not great. My dad was an alcoholic, and I didn't get along. So I went to Winnipeg, started work at an early age. So in 2016, I had a bucket list. So on my bucket list was to get my grade 12. So I came back to my little school in Fisher Branch and talked to the principal, and she said, if you want to do it, you got to buckle down because otherwise you're wasting my time. So I met this lady. Her name was Teresa Moore. She was able and willing to let me sit with her grade 11 class for half a day, for like half a semester, to do it. And she tutored me in math, which in 1985 we never took, like pre-cal and all that. That was not even heard of. So she managed to give me enough knowledge, and I'm sure she shook her head quite a few times, that she helped me get my grade 12.
Wow.
That's
so
amazing.
I
owe her a debt of gratitude for being patient.
What was it that made her such a good teacher?
You know what? She listens. And she understands. I mean, I was the oldest. I was in my late 50s when I did this. So I'm the oldest student in the whole school. And the grade 11 students didn't mind me sitting with them. That's a big kudos to them, too.
Yeah, I mean, for you, that must have been quite the experience being at that age, learning alongside so many people so young. How did that feel?
How did it feel? You know what? The kids made me feel great. Like we're all there to learn. And I just kind of fit in.
Wow.
And I got to be in their grad ceremony and everything.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's such a great story. Well, Brian, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story. And congrats.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very
Keep those calls coming, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. We have a few more callers on the line, but I want to get back to you, Matt, here for a second. What's interesting is I'm just trying to pick up on some of the themes I'm hearing from callers. And it's interesting to hear that, I'm just hearing words like patience, but also not necessarily that they're necessarily, pushovers as teachers. Like there's a strictness to this and like high expectations coming as well, right? What's been sticking out to you?
Well, I think a couple of things stand out to me. One is that all the folks who are recounting their stories are talking about master teachers. Teachers who know there's, I always talk about a few characteristics of master teachers. One is that they know their subject area well. They know how to teach, through direct instruction really well, but they have a bring it factor. So that means they leap out of bed every single day and they're coming in to really transform lives. That's what we talk about in Winnipeg School Division is as teachers, we have an opportunity in a minute and in 10 months to transform the lives of kids. And that's what I'm hearing from the folks here. There's a huge body of research which suggests that a really skilled master teacher has a 5-year impact on a child. And that's always our goal. And that impact could be intellectual, but it certainly is emotional, and it's certainly around that notion of belonging and feeling that you're part of a larger community. So that's certainly resonating with the stories here.
We've got Ralph on the line. Hi there, Ralph.
Hi, how's it going?
Hey, good. What's your story about a teacher?
So my folks moved to a very isolated community in northern British Columbia called Stewart. And Miss Flower, my grade 3 teacher, she was absolutely amazing. She went above and beyond what I, would expect. She read us The Hobbit, which instilled a love of reading a fantasy. And then she thought nothing of inviting the entire class over to her place to make ice candles or artwork. I remember my brother, who was a year behind me, was very annoyed because we moved from Stewart and he didn't get to experience Miss Flower. I still remember her very fondly.
Thanks for that story, Ralph. Really appreciate it. Keep those calls coming, 204-780-0893. Matt, for me, I mean, the question from Ralph's story, is that above and beyond, right? Like they show up in class and they do a good job, but then also, inviting people over to do things. For modern teachers, like today, is that more difficult to do? I think about, even back in, I say back in my day, like I'm super old, I'm like 34, but, I still remember teachers taking us over to their place for extra, tutoring and things like that. Is that still something that teachers can do to make that impact, in down the road?
Yeah, that's probably not something we would recommend in this day and age, but what we do see across Manitoba and across Canada are teachers before school, at lunch, after school, extra help, clubs, sports, like all those things that extend the day for kids. And that's what we really want. Again, the research shows that the more kids spend in school, just in terms of time and hours, their better future outcomes are. And so we, especially in Winnipeg School Division, we kind of double down on that. And our teachers are fantastic. All our staff are fantastic for putting in those extra hours, because it's about building a just and sustainable society where everyone belongs. And you do that by kind of going that extra mile. So we see that all over the place, maybe just not in the home. We don't do that anymore.
And speaking of going the extra mile, we've got Tyler on the line with a story about a resource teacher that also went the extra mile for him. Hey, Tyler.
Hey there. How are you?
Good. What's your story?
I just want to say a quick hello to Matt Henderson. I used to work with Matt in Seven Oaks.
Okay.
I know he's on the line, but the story I wanted to share is with a learning support teacher. Back then we called them resource. This is in grade 5. I had difficulty with reading comprehension, and this teacher would work with me, sort of like Matt said. He had expectations of me. He knew I could overcome this. He knew I could get better with it. And I would meet with him, and he offered some things, like he would say, take one paragraph at a time, use your pencil, make some notes. Don't let yourself go on with whatever you're reading without understanding what you have actually read. And if you need to make notes on your own to better understand what you've read, take away the whole sort of time factor. And I think really that was the crux of the issue, is that I was always just nervous about time. Well, how much time do I have for this? When I would look over, hey, is somebody already finished reading this? So I just always remembered that. And I mean, of course, that was a long, long time ago. So that's, something that has lived in my memory.
Tyler, thanks for that. And Matt, what do you make of Tyler's story? I know you guys know each other, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think those are the transformational moments that I think are so critical, and that we're hypersensitive to. I think in education now is not letting kids slip through the cracks, whether that's with their maths or reading or their speech or other challenges that they might have, and we're screening, and we're especially in the early grades, to make sure that we catch those things. But those types of interactions can set somebody on a different course for the rest of their life, and I think that's the power of public education. That's the power of just teachers going hard and doing everything and creating the relationship so that they're able to recognize when a student might be struggling. I mean, we always say that students should be known in each building by multiple adults. An adult that says, I love you every single day, and also I believe that you'll be successful. And when you have those two ingredients, that's when we're able to really change the course of a child who might otherwise struggle.
I love that. Keep the calls coming. We have time maybe for one more call. You could be that caller, 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. I think about all these stories and these teachers who took the time and took the resources to pour into students' success. But then I also think about some of the headwinds we're facing these days right here in Manitoba. There is a teacher shortage going on right now, and then lots of other just socioeconomic issues, economic issues that kids bring with them to school. What do you think teachers need? And there may be lots of teachers who want to be that teacher who makes that big impact on students every day, but they might be getting burnt out, or there just might be a lot of things going on and just be too busy. What do teachers need to be that teacher that makes that big impact on students?
Well, I think there's a couple. Yeah. No, that's a great question. I mean, that's the start of a book, I suppose, on teaching. But I think the big one is for all teachers need to know that when they come into public education, they have an opportunity to level the playing field for all kids. All kids can learn. And whether they have a neurotypical or neurodiverse mind, all kids can learn, and they deserve to. And it's codified in several documents. And so I think coming into that and knowing that that's your calling, and that's really about creating a just society, then that's the motivation to really begin to connect with kids and to transform their lives. I think the other thing that teachers need to, or people who are thinking about education, is, do you fundamentally love kids? And do you fundamentally love people? And do you want people to succeed? I think sometimes people go into different vocations or jobs because it's just sort of a thing to do. But at the end of the day, if you want to be an impactful teacher, you need to love kids. I mean, you have to have high expectations. You have to know what you're doing. You have to have technique. You have to have a tool belt. But no matter where kids come from, if you have that disposition, that love in your heart, and those skills, you're going to knock them dead.
Well, Matt Henderson, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Matt Henderson is superintendent of the Winnipeg School Division.
Some loud bragger tries to put me down and says the school is great. But tell him right away, no, what's the matter, buddy? Ain't you heard of my school? It's #1 in the state. So be true to your school now, just like you would to your girl or guys. Be true to your school now, let your colors fly. Be true to your school. I got a letterman sweater with a letter in front. I got the football and track. I'm proud to wear it now when I cruise around the other parts of the town. I got a decal and bag. So be true to your school now, just like you would to your girl or guys. Be true to your school now, let your colors fly. Be true to your school.
That's Toby Keith with his cover of the Beach Boys and Stay True to Your School. 12:57 right now. Thanks to everyone who called in. That was so much fun. And thanks for all your stories. I imagine there's lots more people out there. Hope they it got inspired by some of those lovely teacher stories. Hope there was a teacher listening that got inspired, felt appreciated as well. We are coming up to the end of Radio Noon, but we got a little bit of time to chat with Chloe Friesen, who is hosting Up to Speed this afternoon. Hi, Chloe.
Hello.
Hey.
We're actually going to be talking about a school-related story on Up to Speed coming up. And we're going to talk to a student athlete who's feeling upset and blindsided. She's a player on the Winnipeg Westman women's soccer team. The university announced it's discontinuing that program, and the team is starting a petition to bring it back. So we're going to hear how they're feeling and what's happening with the women's soccer program there.
Thank you very much, Chloe.
No problem.
That's Chloe Friesen. She's hosting Up to Speed this afternoon from 3 to 6. Big thanks to May McKillop, Sierra Sanders, Wendy Parker, and Travis Peterson, who helped put together today's show. I'm Corey Funk. Good to be with you. Coming up on CBC Radio 1, Unreserved. Have a good one.